David spent a good portion of his life gathering wealth and winning wars so that he could ensure that Solomon had the absolutely perfect conditions for the construction of the temple. We saw at the end of the book of 1 Chronicles just the sheer amount of money and material that David was able to collect together. And now, Solomon, no doubt following the instruction and the wisdom of God, he spends a little time gathering resources for himself before he then turns his attention to the construction of the temple. He is operating under the conviction that the God of all glory deserves not just what is passable, but the best possible temple. Not just that Israel could build, but that the world could construct. And so he is willing now to draft in helpers from the surrounding nations so that he can get the best material and the best manpower for this construction project. This is a little bit like a particular local football team reaching out beyond that particular region and buying the best talent it can possibly afford, not just the best talent that the area has to offer. And so here we see Solomon reach out and make contact with Hiram, the king of Tyre. He is after a particular material. He says, "Send me cedar logs as you did for my father David when you sent him cedar to build a palace to live in." So the palace of David was made with this beautiful cedar from the hill country of Lebanon. Solomon refuses to make what is effectively the palace of God, not just the palace of David. He refuses to make this palace out of MDF and chipboard. "Get me those glorious cedar logs," he says, "and send me your best craftsmen as well." What I love about this letter to the king of Tyre is that this letter is unashamedly glorifying to God. He doesn't say, "You've got your God and we've got ours. Who could say which the greater one actually is? I certainly don't want to tread on your toes here." No, he's upfront and he's unembarrassed and unashamed about his beliefs. "The temple I am going to build will be great because our God is greater than all other gods." He is saying that to someone who presumably has his own set of beliefs and his own kind of religious system, as did all the surrounding nations. Solomon goes further still, and he says, "But who is able to build a temple for him, since the heavens, even the highest heavens, cannot contain him?" This is majestic language. This is evangelistic in its emphasis. Who then am I to build a temple to him except as a place to burn sacrifices before him? My God is so great that I am not worthy to build him a place and have it be called his home. He cannot be contained in a construction made by merely human hands. Our God is infinite and eternal, and I am a mere mortal, says Solomon. Even Solomon, with all his riches, with all his wisdom, he sees himself as so small when compared with the greatness of his glorious God. And this has an effect on Hiram, the king of Tyre. We've talked about the way in which Hiram provides for the building of the temple when we looked through the book of Kings, back in 2 Kings chapter 5. But notice here what is going on not just physically and practically, but spiritually, internally, as Hiram responds by saying, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who made heaven and earth." You couldn't get a statement that is more glorious and God-honoring than that. Hiram has come to see something of the glory of God because of the way that Solomon has acted towards this God. You see how highly Solomon speaks of God. You see how entirely Solomon is devoted to the worship of the living God. And it is very clear that this God is worthy of worship. There is something that we can learn from that, I think. The way that we talk about God matters, and the way that we treat God matters. And it matters not just because we are creatures and he is our creator and we owe him our personal allegiance. It also matters because the watching world will know how we live our lives. If you are constantly spending your money on frivolous pursuits, then while you say you care about God, your life shows that you care more about this, that, or the other. How about this? If you are constantly complaining about the church that you attend or the people that God has united you to as part of the body of Christ, if you go home to your non-believing spouse or perhaps to your neighbours and you spend all your time complaining about these people, they will see something in you, won't they? They will see that you speak a lot about love, but you aren't very loving towards other people. No, How you act and what you say can be a powerful testimony to the watching world about the reality of the relationship that you have with the living God. Jesus says as much in his high priestly prayer in John chapter 17. Jesus prays that God's people might be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and that you have loved them even as you have loved me. In other words, one of the most evangelistic things we can do in terms of showing others the reality of the faith we have is truly loving the people of God well and serving God with the best that we have. Then the world will know, Jesus says, that you have truly sent me. Solomon sets a beautiful example right here of speaking highly and acting consistently with that high estimation of the things of God, so that even the kings of neighboring nations have cause to cry out to the living God in praise.